Um, so yeah, I've been talking about how I wanted to make iron gall ink, and it's iron gall. It's Gall. Um, the galls come from oak trees. Um, the ones that you want to use for ink, anyway. And I've been reading up on it a lot. So some of the things I've learned are that the first like recorded recipe for making iron gall ink was from about 300 AD, and it was, I mean, it's still in use today, but it was like the ink for centuries. Like the recipe that I'm following, Sir Isaac Newton recommends that you leave it out in the sun, So, Da Vinci's doodles were done with iron gall ink. The Dead Sea Scrolls were written with it. The Declaration of Independence was signed with it. For a long time, it was the like official ink of the U.S. Treasury. All of those manuscripts, the religious writings and texts, the monks did, beautifully illuminated stuff was all done with iron gall ink. So I've become like fascinated and obsessed with this stuff. And because California, being from California, I've grown up with California live oaks. They're everywhere. They're kind of like symbolic of California. And there's a bunch of different kinds, but in general, like you can find them from the coasts to the deserts. So, so I became kind of obsessed with iron gall ink and decided that I was going to make it because it's really easy. So, um, I already crushed up all of the galls that I found this weekend, but I wanted to show this one to you. This one's huge. Usually, like, they max out at about, like this size, like golf ball size, maybe. Oh, there's an ant. Who knows what bugs are going to come out of this. Um, this one's just gigantic. This is the biggest one that we found out all of them. And the way the galls are formed um, is these little wasps. They don't sting, but these little wasps lay their eggs in the leaves of the oak tree, and then the oak tree forms this like protective gall, around it. And so the little larva lives inside it, and eventually it tunnels out. You can see there's like a hole here, there's another one here. So sometimes you'll have multiple larvae living in one gall, and sometimes you'll have just like one. Depends on the species of wasp, because there are tons of different wasps that do this too. But there's only a few kind that form this kind of gall. So I saved this one just because it was so huge. If the wasps that came out of these stung, I would not be saving this. And the interesting thing is they're like really light. I think I have ants over here today. Yeah, it's summer. We have ants everywhere. They're really light. Like this one, I weighed this one, and this one is exactly an ounce. It's like exactly 28 grams on the nose. So kind of cool that the inside is like filled with this like spongy stuff. It's not hollow, obviously, but it's filled with like this kind of spongy stuff. So they crush very easily too, because only the outside is like rigid. And even then, it's like pretty fragile. So if you stepped on this, it would just crush into powder. So what you do is you get your galls, you crush them up, and there's a few ways to do it. You can boil them for a couple hours to extract all the tannic acid. Or you can, what are some of the other things you can do? Oh yeah, something's living in here. There's all kinds of poop coming out. Like maybe I shouldn't have this on my art table after all. I don't know what's going to come out. This could be exciting, guys. I got the camera on close up, so who knows what's going to come out. I like tapping it to see. Like if something crawls out of that, I'm going to freak the fuck out, and it's going to be like the best highlight ever. So anyway, so you can boil them, you can soak them, or the best way to do it is to let them ferment. So that's what I'm doing. I have 3 jars outside of galls and water that are just soaking. So they're sitting in the I know. So they're sitting in the sun now. I added a little yeast to speed up the ferment, which you don't have to do, but I'm impatient. I don't want to wait for 2 months. They recommend letting it ferment for 2 months. I'm not that patient. And the reason that you let it ferment that much, like I'm going to get kind of sciencey, right? I know, a 10 km. I finally got my first 10K egg, actually, this weekend. Finally, at level like 21. Anyway, back to the galls. So the reason that you are soaking them, boiling them, or whatever is you're trying to extract tannic acid, tannins, and the specific type in this one is gallotannic acid. And when you mix that with iron sulfate, with ferrous sulfate, it actually creates a black ink. There's like a chemical reaction. So what you need to do is you have to soak them. Um, if you just boil them, you extract gallutanic acid. If you ferment it, the bacteria will actually break it. There's like enzymes that will break it down into gallic acid, which is better for the ink and creates a more permanent ink. And the thing about this ink is that it's kind of light when you first use it, but it very quickly oxidizes on exposure to air and turns black. And once it turns black, and once you put it down and it dries, it's waterproof, which is why all of these manuscripts and art, Da Vinci stuff, has lasted all of these centuries. So what happens is that the acid kind of helps it bite into the paper, and then the iron, when it oxidizes, creates like this black pigment. So yeah, so it's really cool stuff. I've become kind of obsessed about it. I've been researching it a lot lately, obviously. And I mean, I have 3 huge jars sitting in the sun outside, and I shit you not, you guys, I'm probably gonna have about a gallon of ink. So I'll be putting it up on Etsy. I have a friend who has a kind of a company that kind of sells odd things. I'll see if maybe they want to sell some of it, because that's going to be more ink than I can use in my entire lifetime. Okay, so once you've extracted all of your gallic acid, right? Once you've soaked them, you have to strain them, and then you have to filter it. You have to filter it like really, really well just to get all the particulates out. And then you're left with this clear, if colored. It's going to be tinted, but you're left with this clear liquid. So this morning, this is probably not as filtered as it should be. But I went outside, I threw a coffee filter on top of one of the jars and a double layer of coffee filters, and I extracted this liquid. So this is only after a couple of days. You can see, it's almost like tea. You know how tea is very dark? So is this stuff, and I don't know if it's how focused it'll be, but you can see it. It is transparent, but it's pretty pigmented. So once you've got your basically your solution with the gallic acid, this is no dioxin. This is an oak gall. It's just very large. So I'm not going to be measuring, like normally I would be measuring my proportions. I'm not going to do it for this because it doesn't matter because I'm not keeping this. But I wanted to show you guys what happens when you mix. This is ferrous sulfate. So really cheap. Got it off of Amazon. Shipped prime, right? So we've got our ferrous sulfate. So this is just iron. So this is what happens when you mix it with the liquid that contains the gallic acid. I don't know if you can see, but it's already turning black. So you mix it up, and it's already getting darker. I can't remember what the ratio is. It's something like 9 parts galls that you soak to like 2 parts of ferrous sulfate. So you see how it's getting like black, and then the longer this is exposed to air, the blacker it's going to become. So the thing, and then I think there's also not enough water in this. It's too thick. I got a piece of paper here. Got paper, and I'm gonna actually stir this a little bit. Yeah, this is like so like not. This is not what the final process will be. I just wanted to show you. So now the thing about this stuff is that if you use metal dip pens with it, it can corrode the pens over time. So you're going to have to if you ever use iron gall ink, you have to be cognizant of that and make sure that you clean your pens. Got a thicker nib actually. Well, this will work. I'm going to just kind of spread this around. This is not very black yet. This is way early into the process. Let's see if it turns black. I might need more iron oxide. Or ferrous sulfate, I mean. Iron sulfate. Because it's still a little kind of... Like I said, I'm not measuring. So... Yeah, it could look like a potato. It's interesting, different galls from different parts of the world have different concentrations of the acid. Yeah, actually it's turning black already. I don't know if you can see. So once when I actually make the ink, I'll be doing this in the proper proportions. So I'll have more of the gallic acid. It's probably a pretty weak solution. Nah, it's turning black. Totally turning black. So Yeah, so the longer it's exposed to air, or as it's exposed to air, it'll darken up. So, and then once it's yeah, and then once it's all done, um, it's going to it'll be waterproof. So, yep. So that is my quick little chemistry thing for you. When I actually make the ink, I'll definitely come in and demonstrate it for you guys so you can see. So I'm pretty excited about it. So I've been Turrican was gracious enough because he's so tall to go with me on Saturday to collect a bunch of. I actually Friday after the stream, I went to we call it Bandito Park, like a local landmark. I went to Bandito Park and collected some. Oh, sorry. One more thing. That's the last step is you also add gum arabic to it, like once the ink is created. So he was gracious enough to go to. I went to Bandito Park. I found a few galls because I didn't really know what I was looking for yet. And then just as the light was fading, I had a eureka moment. I found a couple and I was like, oh, okay, I get what I'm looking for now. So Saturday, Turkan and my daughter went with me to another park where there's like a trail and there's tons of oak trees, and we came back with like two full like gallon-sized Ziploc bags full of galls. So I crushed those up, and then on Sunday, I went. It's funny. It smells like metal because of the iron. Sunday, I went back to Bandito Park, and I picked up a ton of galls from there. So when they were crushed, it was like 170 something grams of the oak galls. I don't know if you can see this, but this is like way blacker than it was when I first put it down. So I'm making a separate batch. So I'm making like a huge batch from the first trip that we made. And then I'm making a separate batch called Bandito Black because Bandito Park is, it's like this local landmark. So I think, at least around here, it'll sell well. And it's kind of a cool name, Bandito Black. But I was thinking also it might be kind of cool to, if people seem to like, locally, if, because there's a lot of weird people in LA. If people like it, I'll seriously make like batches from different places. We could do like, straight from Oaks in Hollywood or Malibu, like sort of places around LA, different areas of LA, different, it'll basically all be the same ink. In the end, it'll be about the same, but, it would be kind of cool because I know that like one of the things for me with Bandito Park, and Bandito Black is that I know that park and it's like, it's kind of it's this cool landmark, around here. And I'll show you. I took a photo. It's basically this little field. It's not an official park. It's this little like vacant lot. And there's a guy who lives in the area who just kind of takes care of it on his own. But he stacks rocks everywhere. And so when you go to Bandito Park, there's stuff like this everywhere. There's like these rock stacks. So it's kind of this, and there's like rock sculptures and all of this. This is one of the oak trees in the background. So I took this photo just for like demonstration purposes when I list on Etsy, like, where the stuff's from. So, I have like an attachment to that area. So it seems like it would be cooler to, so other people as well might be like, oh, well, I've always loved, Griffith Park, or I've always loved Malibu or something like that, and would want ink specifically made from the oaks there. So anyway, so that's that. Look how black this is now. Do you remember how it was? When I first put it on, it was just kind of like brown and sludgy, and look at it now. So it just has to, it has to be exposed to air so it can oxidize on the paper. And then once it's dry, it should be pretty waterproof. So cool stuff. Okay. That's the end of Science with 70. I thought I would share that with you guys because I'm totally geeking out over it. Okay, I need to get water. I have to clean the nib on this pen. Like I said, that because there is iron in the ink, I mean, it's essentially rust. It could actually corrode your nibs if you don't clean them. so good idea to make sure that's handled, like always. And then I guess I'll put this back in the jar outside later so it can continue to ferment. So let me grab water. If I can't reach it. Oh my god. BRB. Oh, also, Knox, I was reading, more about galls. I found some book from like 1905 even. Apparently the British galls have even less tannic acid. Like the best ones are from Turkey. The ones from Britain, you're going to have to use more of them. So, like I'm using more of the California oak galls than the recipes call for. Um, because they have like a lower concentration of the tannic acid or gallic acid, but the British ones have even less. So if you make it, you're gonna have to use even more of them. And you have to be careful, like when you mix stuff, use glass, use plastic, because you can't store it in like something like this. This I would not be able to use my little ink bottle here, because it has a metal cap. So you got to store that shit in glass and plastic, or you're gonna have problems. Okay, I want to make sure that this nib is like totally clean. Yeah, it's not a big deal. I mean, I guess some people still do use it in fountain pens. They just make sure that they clean it real well. I trust you to have shit ones. Is that right? All right. It should be fine. It's not like this nib was like pristine to begin with. Probably a little rusty to start with. There's all kinds of ink in it. Damn thing's already rusting anyway.